Hi, and welcome to our very first podcast for What's Your Story? You may have noticed that we're having an event. If you haven't, I'm pretty sure you live under a rock at this point because it's everywhere on all social. But we're excited to have our very first podcast, and our first guests today are Stacy Mulligan and Gerard Ramallo. And next to me is my partner and our creative ninja for What's Your Story, Michelle Hausbeck.
Hello and welcome. I'm super excited. Our first podcast. Woo! We've been talking about this for a while and it's here. So thank you for joining us.
And how cool is the background for this? This was created by, again, our creative ninja, Michelle Hausbeck. So our brand last year was the beach because that's where we were at. This year we brought it home to Las Vegas. And so the background and all of our assets and everything is the skyline of Vegas, which, you know, we're proud of. It's home. So we're very excited. And I want to welcome our guest, Stacy Mulligan, who is a sponsor and a speaker and part of the What's Your Story family.
Welcome, Stacy.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
This is also Stacy's very first podcast, so there's a lot of firsts happening today. I'm just going to call you out right on the spot.
Call me out. I'm very good at the not okay move. This is my first podcast. I'm petrified. I'm going to power through it. These pink chairs are making a difference.
These pink chairs are everything. So tell us a little bit about Stacy.
Well, a little bit about Stacy. So I am a realtor with EXP, and I'm a seniors real estate specialist. I am a wife and an avid baker. In case anybody knows me out there, they've maybe seen or tasted some of my baked goods.
It's excellent. I actually had a food-gasm, the last cookie I had from Stacy.
Right here in this building.
I remember
In fact,
that.
downstairs.
I remember that. I can still remember the way you looked at me. I feel a little violated, but flattered all at the same time. I'm a dog lover. Got my chocolate lab at home and my Frenchie, who's cranky constantly. He's fabulous. I love him. And of course, Maisie May, she's perfectly lovely. And we've got the kids and a grandkid, and I do family dinner. And I'm just, you know, I'm old fashioned at heart. Family dinner, no phones, get together, you know, do the grandma thing, and sell houses.
And participate in What's Your Story.
And participate in What's Your Story.
So
Yes.
why did you become involved with What's Your Story?
So you probably know Missy Day, and if you don't, then I'll tell you that anything that she asks you to do, you just do. It's sort of a strange driving force that she asks and you're like, oh, okay, yes, of course I'll do that. No, I won't go to Pilates. I will come and do this podcast today. So she asked me a couple of years ago to go to What's Your Story. I think it was supposed to be in October of 2019 or so. No, it was in 2020 when everything went awry. And so I just went. I said, okay, I'm supposed to go. I had no idea what it was really about. And I went to Huntington Beach, and it was amazing. I was not expecting some of the things, actually, any of the things. The stories were unreal, but of course real, because they were regular people telling them, and a lot of the people I already knew. So to hear them saying things like that were just mind-boggling. It gave me a different sense of who people were, and, you know, just that maybe I have some things going on and everybody else has those things going on too. So I left there thinking, wow, this was great. And I was planning to go again, and then Missy again asked me to speak at the pop-up, which I was terrified to do, and I did, and I just talked about sponsoring or something. What did I say? I don't remember. That was an eternity ago, a year and a half ago.
It was.
It was.
But since then, I've gotten really close to What's Your Story and what it's all about, and I was asked again to speak at What's Your Story, just not asked again to speak, but asked again by Missy, who you can't say no to. I took her Get Better Speaking, Get
Good speaking.
Get Good Speaking
Speaking.
training, Get Better at Speaking.
And apparently
I
it
failed.
works. No.
She passed me. I guess it's just the way it goes. Everybody passes. No, anyway, we learned to tell a story, and then she asked me to do a little Friday night thing at this one. So, of course, I said yes. And in the meantime, I thought, you know what? This is bigger than, than I thought, and it needs to be out there with more people. And so I took the plunge, and I decided to sponsor What's Your Story as the gold sponsor.
Thank you again.
You're welcome. Am I paying for this? No, I'm just kidding.
Well, actually, you are.
Your sponsorship does support What's Your Story and all of its efforts.
I'm glad. What's Your Story needs to live on.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
For those of you, if you're not familiar with What's Your Story, 6 years ago, I decided to create a platform for people to tell their stories in a safe space. Right now in our current environment, stories are everywhere. What's Your Stories and, tell your stories is just a thing now. But back then it was not. People weren't sharing their stories because there's a certain level of fear, as Stacy said. There's, you don't want to be judged. You don't want to be thought less than. And so when I shared my story, I was kind of like taken aback by all the feedback that I got from being brave and sharing my story and people not believing that it really was my story. And so we want to change that idea that people have. Everyone, I don't care who you are, has a story. But the most important piece to that is that there is someone waiting to hear your story, and you don't want to deny that person the opportunity to have a transformation in their own life because you didn't share your story. So that's what it's all about. And this is our 11th event, and I'm very excited that this one, when you stand back and let God move, things happen and stuff's happening.
It's moving. We had our first Zoom with all of our keynote speakers and a couple of our other speakers, and I just sat there just with goosebumps because you're in the middle of it happening, and it's surreal. It's surreal sometimes where it was and where it is now. A little history was we had a fabulous auditorium stage, however it was in a nursing home a couple years ago, which it was a great venue and a great space, but we knew we had to take it out of there, and that's when we decided to go to Huntington Beach in 2020, and then it got pushed to 2021, so that was but hey, we made it, and it exploded, I think, that year through all the trials and tribulations of moving it and everything we had to deal with. And we are very excited for the Vegas one this year.
When you're talking about all that, so it was mostly the keynote speakers that was on the Zoom yesterday.
Right.
And you see each person individually and you hear little snippets of their story, not the whole story, because I like saving that for What's Your Story for my own self. I don't want to hear everybody's story.
Right.
And so, but to see them all there and talk about, it was just like, it was too much.
Verklempt.
Are you going to tell the story of how you reacted to one of the people on the phone or on the Zoom call where you had a small stroke? I'm just kidding. Called you out.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for that.
Hey,
Stacy.
It's What's Your Story. You don't have to share. This is your show.
One of our speakers, his name is Gary Miracle, and so Mercy Me wrote a song about him, about his story. It's called Say I Won't. And so, if you know me, I ask. If I want something, I'll just ask. If you say yes, cool. If you say no, okay. Whatever, I'll move on.
No one says no, by the way. For the record, nobody says no.
It is a rare occurrence.
So I got on and I was like, on his website, and I was like, fill in this contact form if you want him to come speak at your event. And I was like, why not? And so he said yes. And so Michelle and I were on a Zoom call. I don't know who I turned into because my voice went up. Like, oh my God, I can't believe. And then it was like, what's happening to me?
And if you've ever been around Missy, well, her and I have this, I don't know, issue where we cannot control our faces. Like, we are an open book if you can see our face. And she was trying so hard to contain her face. And her voice did go up an octave, and I was just sitting there giggling to myself a little bit because I knew she was like fidgeting underneath and just so excited, which I was too.
Yeah, it's, it's a thing.
It's a thing, and it's awesome.
But if we could jump back to you for just a sec.
Sorry, we took a little detour there.
Maybe I played that card too soon.
Well, I was just thinking, like, how we watch people change and grow through What's Your Story all the time. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about how you were at the very beginning, like when, we asked you to be on the pop-up one, and like where you are now and all the things that have changed, in your life. So talk a little bit about your personal growth path.
It's interesting. It's hard to measure things like that because, it's like watching a baby grow. If you're there every day, you don't notice that, oh, look at how much they're doing now. But if you go back 3 months ago and look again, you say, oh my gosh, look at what they're doing. Look, they're walking now. They weren't walking before. And somehow I took the plunge, and I think it was really only recently. I think it was only this year, the beginning of this year, because I did fine through COVID. I powered through. I'm not stopping. And of course, I was a real estate agent, so I was essential, right? So now I wear the badge of I'm essential. And maybe it would have been better if I wasn't essential because, it was just hard. It was hard to show houses with masks on and to just not be around people. I'm a salesperson. I have to be with people. So I did get COVID, of course, the lovely COVID in September. I did really well up until then. So I got it in September, and I was pretty much taken out, and my husband and I both were taken out. Just not to the hospital, but just like sleeping and sleeping and sleeping and sleeping. And then I'm quite sure that I have some brain damage from that. No. That's not really funny, but I can only laugh. And so since September, I was just sort of in a fog. I couldn't pull myself back together. I thought I was, but I couldn't get back into my brain and my move forward like I normally was. I'm next, what's next? I'm doing the thing, I'm doing it 100%. If I'm doing it, I'm doing it 100%. Maybe 110 or 102. So in January, I joined a mastermind group, and these two ladies are in that group, and a lot of other wonderful people. And I think that was the beginning of changing me, for real. I got a coach. Yes, I paid Missy Day to ask me to do things that make me uncomfortable so that I can say yes.
I'm in that boat as well.
Aren't we all in that boat?
I think I'm 4 years strong with that.
Why don't we throw her overboard? Why do we keep her on?
You want to make me feel uncomfortable and yell at me and nudge at me?
Here's some money. Please make me sick to my stomach.
Send me the invoice.
But a combination of all of those things between the mastermind and just surrounding myself with people that, are outside of my industry, but like great people, so smart, so full of insight, just having that outside perspective that when you're a solopreneur, right, when you just run your business on your own, there's nobody to say, hey, what should I put on my ad for What's Your Story? And 12 seconds later, somebody says, oh, put this. And I go, oh my God, I've been thinking about it for days. Why didn't I just ask?
Right.
But I guess through that time, I just got to the point where I'm not a public speaker, right? That's my worst nightmare, but I will walk into a room, a crowded room, walk up to anybody and start talking to them. I am not afraid of that. Ask me to stand up in the front of a room with 2 people or 2,000, it doesn't matter. Sick to my stomach, sweating, dying on the inside, looking like I'm not dying on the outside mostly, but shaking. But a few days ago, I decided that's enough of that. And I don't need to be afraid anymore because I've been holding myself back, and I don't need to hold myself back. I need to just, embrace what I want and then do what I want to get it, or do what I need to do to get it. And so when Missy's got impeccable timing, I had just come back from the Tom Ferry Summit, which is a real estate convention, and I'm pumped up and rah, 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 and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. But this time I came back steady and stable and grounded. And I just had I had a come to Jesus with myself on the plane ride home. And I said, what are you doing? Why are you not shining your light where it can go? And why are you holding back for your family? You want all these things for your family and for yourself, but why are you not letting yourself do it? And so I wrote it all down, and then that was that. And then I cleared clutter out of my kitchen and off of my desk and in the house and in my brain and in my soul. And then Missy conveniently asked me to be on the podcast, and I said yes. And here I am.
So did you come up with an answer for the why haven't you been doing the things that you want to do?
I think the answer is just implied. I'm just afraid. I had gone to an event years and years ago called, what was it called? The Millionaire Mindset. And before that, I'd been very different with money. I had the broke mentality because I was raised, we didn't have money, and my mom did what she needed to do, and we always had things miraculously, but we never had any money. So there were things like cars being repossessed and having to leave the house before they, came and took it kind of things. But there were also gourmet meals and trips to the Bahamas. So, she wasn't a drug lord or anything. But if she had been, the cars probably would have still been here. But that's just life. I mean, I've had a car repossessed. I can't pay for it anymore. Before, things are different now. But anyway, the event, they break you down, and then in the end, they figure out, what's your problem? What was my problem with money? And as it turned out, I thought my problem with money, or I thought my big fear was fear of failure. And then when we had to break an arrow in our throat, like this little part here, you wrote right here. You wrote your biggest fear on the arrow, and then you ran into somebody and broke it.
Wow.
Yeah, I went first and I go first because I'm afraid. So I just want to get it over with. I don't want to worry about it, and that's where my anxiety comes from. But anyway, it turned out my biggest fear was success. And I guess, I don't know why, but maybe because, that's not the way I lived my life, and maybe I'd be hurting my family by changing that and being better and not struggling, because my mother struggled, and she did everything that she needed to do, and that's all I knew. I knew how to struggle, and I knew how to make it. But I don't want to just make it. I want to, make it big so that I can make it big for other people. How can I help anybody else if I can't even feed myself?
Right.
So I forgot the question.
What was the answer?
So the answer, right. So the answer was, I think it's fear. And, I think fear is just the underlying for everything. And I just decided I'm not going to be scared anymore. Well, that's not true. I am scared because I'm scared right now, but not in the same way that I was before. Now I say, that's probably going to be a little scary. Oh, well, put it on the calendar.
Yeah. You have tools to deal with it now in your tool bag.
Now it just goes in there, and I say, okay, check mark, did that. Okay, check, did that. Yeah. Drank my shake, went to Pilates, did my first podcast. It's just all the same, it needs to be, otherwise I'll have a nervous breakdown.
Well, you referenced the mastermind that we're in, and we're going through Bob Goff's book, Dream Big, and he has a journal that goes along with it. And So, and then a friend of ours recommended a book, Who Not How. So between those two books, I feel like, somebody put my head in a box and shook it violently, because there's just like so much going on between those two books. And I think this year, those two books have been an aha for all of us, for sure, on how we look at things differently, and, finding your who to help you, grow things. And so I would say that Michelle is definitely my who for What's Your Story, because I wanted to keep it small. I think it needed to be small and intimate, and then people kept telling me, no, you need to get, make this bigger. And then Michelle was like, she goes, I want to be involved. And then it's just involved to this thing that just keeps getting bigger and bigger every year. So being my who, so what do you see What's Your Story being down the road?
Oh, I see a lot of things.
I see things.
I see things. I'm a dreamer, number one, right? I'm always the what if person. I mean, I think we all are actually sitting at this table. The big picture to me, like big ass picture, would be to have What's Your Story in multiple states. And What's Your Story, just how it is, it needs to stay somewhat intimate. And I'm talking about maybe, 250 people, not 20,000 people, right? So, because there's something special about that. But I see it being in multiple states, it traveling. We've joked about having a What's Your Story bus and taking it on the road. But I really think, like, I can see the bus in my head. I think that could completely be viable. And it's possible at some point we find other who's that have the same mindset as you and I, and they can run one in their own city or town respectively. Because as Missy said, everybody has stories. And the more that we can tell them and share them and help others, the better. It's interesting. I've known Stacy for a couple of years now, and what she just shared about her mindset and struggle with money, I never knew that, but I actually had that same issue and still do a little bit today. I have to catch myself sometimes, and the fear of success, something that I've gone through / going through, and I never knew that about her, and I wouldn't have known that unless she told her story.
Right. Because, like I said, well, especially since the last 2.5 years have just been like, so weird, and it continues to be weird. It just feels like 20, 21, and 22 is just like this big, long, continual something that we're living in.
Yeah.
And it's created a lot of stories. And we're here to serve. That's why we're here, is to serve others. And What's Your Story is just a way to serve and help people by telling our stories and giving them space to tell theirs. And so if you would like to see Stacy be scared and sick to her stomach and freak out, you can see her speak on Friday night, October 14th at the Ahern Hotel. We're going to be kicking off What's Your Story that evening with some speaking. The keynotes are going to introduce themselves. We're going to have appetizers and beverages, and just make it a little more intimate to meet everybody in that space. I think one thing that really made good grief, when was it? Last something or other's good What's Your Story?
2021 in Huntington?
I was supposed to be at
Yes.
that when it was here.
Yeah.
September.
And what
October.
made that one so special is because, and this never happens, but the 5 that were in the speaker training class, I just saw it becoming more than just learning how to speak. They became our What's Your Story speakers for the pop-up. And I think what made that so awesome was because you all had a chance to bond during that class, all those months with the class, that you could just feel everybody being so supportive of one another's stories. And so that's kind of one of the reasons why we decided to do a Friday night event, to kind of, so that everybody can kind of like speak and gel and get to know each other, besides, because there's no time on Saturday really for that to happen.
Well, and we noticed that too at the one in Huntington Beach. So we had lunch, essentially on the premises where it was, and everyone got to sit and talk with the speakers. But a lot of people wanted to try to go talk to the speakers, and there wasn't really time there either. So I love that we're adding the meet and greet, so you can get to know them, and that makes it even more special when you hear them the next day tell their stories.
Well, and I think it's important too, because when I went to the first one, like I said, I had no idea what was going to happen. I thought, oh, it's going to tell a story. Oh, I had this bad thing happen and now I'm good. But it was a day. It was an emotional day. And I think that Friday night is really important, because it's going to let people have a little taste of what they're in for, because they're in for it on Saturday. I mean, your speaker lineup, I don't know if I'm going to make it. So I think that's a really good way to kind of introduce everyone to, here's the setting, and kind of get ready for feeling a lot of stuff tomorrow.
Right.
And maybe a little bit, with our stories too on Friday night. But that's just a little taster before you get hit in the head with a bag of bricks, which is wonderful, by the way. Yeah, exactly. A little antipasto, But I think that was a great idea, even though you asked me to do it, and you know how I love to speak in public.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
And you're welcome.
And thank you.
So I have a question for you real quick. What's your vision of What's Your Story?
I'm really down for the bus thing. I think the What's Your Story bus and traveling around with people that are on the bus that tell stories, but also going to different states and having those events, with new people, I think would just breathe even more life into the event, get more exposure. Plus the thing, I'm just really want to travel on an RV. I don't know why, or a bus, whatever it is. I don't care.
We sold our trailer yesterday, so you can't have ours.
Woo-woo!
Congratulations. Thank you. Will the bus be pink?
It'll be
No,
branded.
it'll be this.
Well, I know that, but is pink a primary color in this?
Oh, the inside should
that's
be
pink.
all pink.
Pink plush?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I love
Now
it.
we're taking these chairs, Rick.
Do they come with it? Thanks for the podcast. Great chairs. I can fit them in my car.
Okay.
They are awesome.
Well, I wanted to give a shout out to Rick Manning, who is on the boards manning the podcast for us this morning. We're just super excited to be having a podcast for What's Your Story. The set is amazing. We love it. And I want to thank Stacy Mulligan for being our very first guest on our very first podcast. And my partner is always Michelle Hausbeck. And if you'd like to join us, you can visit our website on the bottom of the screen there. It's October 14th and 15th at the Ahern Hotel. What's Your Story? I promise you, transformed is such an overused word right now, but I really can't think of anything else how to describe it. You will leave changed, I guarantee it. And you might even want to tell your story someday after you see everybody tell theirs. So I hope you have a great day. Thanks for joining us, and see you at What's Your Story.
Bye.
Bye.